Your PvP kit sucks. I know that for a fact. 90% of the players I've killed have an inventory that either looks like this or this. Absolutely horrible. That's why today I'm going to be showing you everything you need to know, from what to bring in PvP, how to get stacked as soon as possible, and what enchants are the best. Trust me, you're gonna want to know this. Even if you're tier 2 or maybe even a tier 1, this video will be of benefit to you. To start off, it may come as a shocker, but did you know that critical damage on your sword is the most useless enchant in the game? Let me explain. I'm sure when you're enchanting your gear, you're going for specific swords or armor. This has kept people split between 3 main different swords: damage 3, speed 2, damage 3, crit 2, and speed 3, damage 2. Those are the 3 main swords that I see people using in combat. Well, after this, I assure you that I will change your outlook on all of those swords. But first, you're going to have to understand crit. I'm sure you've hit a player before and have it dealt 10 damage, but once fallen, it deals 13 damage. That means that a base crit has a 130% damage increase. Now, if you enchant your sword to something like critical hit 1, that becomes a base damage of 140% for crit. So every crit level you have on your sword, you will deal 10% extra crit damage, with crit 3 leading up to 160%. Now you may be thinking, that's really good, right? And you'd be damn wrong. Let me explain for a minute. When you enchant your sword with damage 1, then it has a 20% increase right away. So from dealing 10 damage, it deals 12 damage. Every level of damage you add to your sword after that gets an extra 10%, with damage 1 starting at 120%, damage 2 going to 130%, and damage 3 being 140%. But here's where it behaves weird. For say, if you have damage 1 on your sword, for some odd reason, the critical base damage of blocks 130% changes to 140% with that damage on your sword. And after that, it still adds on your extra 20% damage. To sum that up, if you have damage 1 on your sword, a critical hit will deal 160% damage. Or for say, a damage 1 sword is better than a crit 3 sword. Damage 2 will deal 170% damage, already better than a crit 3 sword at critting. And damage 3 will deal 180% crit damage. Now, if we put critical hit damage stats from a damage sword next to a crit sword, then you can clearly see which is better off, completely marking critical damage off of the meta. Now you might be thinking, damage 3 and crit 2 will deal a lot of damage then, right? But you're wrong on that too. After a lot of testing, I figured out that damage 3 plus speed 2 sword has about a 4.2 second time to kill against protection 3 and health 2 armor. That is full prot 3 with 130 HP. That sets it as a base of 206.3 damage per second. Or against the prot 3 armor, it does 30.95 damage per second. Now, if we look at speed 3 damage 2, we have reduced that time by 0.7 seconds. That adds up to 3.2 time to kill, and a 247.6 damage per second, which adds up to 37.14 damage per second towards prot 3 armor. If that was a little bit confusing, we can just say this. A damage 2 speed 3 sword kills roughly 20% faster than a damage 3 speed 2 sword. Just by looking at these stats, I'm sure that changed something. Since you know critical damage is outright garbage to put on a sword, a speed 3 damage 2 sword is roughly 20% stronger than a damage 3 speed 2 sword. That can matter a lot, and you don't even need high clicks per second, because I have a CPS of roughly 10 to 14, and I use this sword. For those of you Knight Sword users out there, note that the swords do 7.5% more damage than diamond swords, with its damage 3 and speed 2 having a time of 3.8 seconds to kill, with a base DPS of 228 damage, and towards Prot 3, it does 34.21 damage per second, which isn't too much faster than Diamond compared to how Knight Swords deal more knockback, meaning it's harder to hold combos. And for a speed 3 damage 2 Knight Sword, it has a 3.4 time to kill. That's only 100 milliseconds faster than the Diamond Sword, rendering it at 254 damage per second at its base, and towards Prot 3, it does 38 DPS. That's only if you can consistently hit your enemy, though. And with the Knight Sword's high knockback, I don't know how many times I have to say this, but I'd say Diamond Swords are much better in land PvP than a Knight Sword. Also, keep in mind that this damage per second only counts if you're consistently hitting your shots. But of course, a lot of this depends on clicks per second, so if you have anything under 10, I would probably still recommend the damage 3 speed 2, even though it is slightly worse than the speed 3 swords. This can also apply if you have a lack of aim, but even with that bad of aim, if you're doing whole PvP, speed 3 damage 2 Knight Swords are the go-to. Now these numbers, like a 20% increase in damage and a 30% increase, it doesn't seem like a huge difference, but I can assure you it is. To test that, you can try fighting someone when they have full protection 3 diamond armor, and you have no enchants on your armor. You'd lose without a doubt. Now, unless they're like tier 5 at PvP. But the point is that that's only a 10% damage reduction increase. In unenchanted, diamond armor has a 75% total damage reduction, and if you have Prot 3 on you, it only reducts 10% more of that damage. I was shocked when I first saw this 10% increase. I thought it'd be like as high as a 90%, but that really shows what a big impact such small differences can make. And if you're wearing Protection 2 armor, it reducts 82.5% of the damage. That's only 3.5% less than Prot 3, which begs the differ. Is Prot 3 really worth it? For that 3.5% extra damage reduction, I can assure you this can be life-saving at times. Like, you're losing like 30% of the Prot 3's capability. And without this type of armor, I probably would have died on lobby 1 a couple times. But why not have a 3.5% extra damage reduction, right? Except the only problem is it's pretty darn hard to get. For example, if you wanted a full set Protection 3 Regeneration 2 Diamond Armor, I'd have to break the news for you. Assuming you only take level 80 rolls on a Diamond Enchanting table and none of them in the 70, you'll have a 21% chance to get tier 5 enchants per roll you take. On average, if you wanted a Protection 3 Health 2 Diamond Helmet, it would take you 25 of these rolls to get that set you want. With all of those 80 level rolls leading up to 2,000 levels on average to get one piece that you want. To put that in perspective, if you're enchanting 100 sets of Protection 3 Regeneration 2 armor, all at 80 level rolls on average, it would take you 10,000 levels to get that entire set. So if you're walking around with one of those sets on, you just know you're worth a couple hours of work, or maybe just a couple minutes of duping. And if that was hard to follow, I can put it this way. To get the exact enchant you want on a level 80 roll, you have a 4.1% chance of getting that. So if you enchanted your sword and you wanted damage 3, speed 2, you'd only have a 4.1% chance of getting that. And for items such as Stomp Boots or Knight Swords, that gets even worse since there's 4 different enchant options, leading it down to a 3.02% chance on a level 80 roll. Or on average, 33 attempts and 2.6 thousand levels. Now these numbers at some point might be somewhat overwhelming, So you could just go for a whole protection 2 diamond set. I mean, it's much easier, no one's stopping you. But while all of you were farming your chili farms, there's been a much better strategy to get XP right beneath your feet, or above your head if you're in the void. Yeah, by looking for ruins, specifically these magma ruins, you can get XP really fast. You just use an X-ray texture pack or this X-ray glitch here, and you'll get roughly 100 to 150 levels per ruin, and maybe some other cool stuff too. Compared to a full chest of chili blocks and a couple hundred levels, I think it's a pretty sweet deal. Now here's my honest take. Early game sucks to grind loot. I always use the ruin strat to get full protection 3 just within a few hours. But that's not the only thing that sucks to grind. For example, if you have a low render distance, you could be missing out on quite a bit. Or it'll just be a pain finding what you want early game. I often use this website, the Blox Seed Finder. You can just type in your seed and your coordinates and look for whatever biome you want, hunting head right over there. It's pretty easy, and it's not even against the Blox rules. Now time to talk about some of the fancy stuff. By inflicting your enemy with the debuff weakness 1, they now take 20% more damage, and weakness 2 makes them take 30% more damage. This is great, making them drop 30% faster. To better explain this, we are using speed 3 and damage 2 swords. Those have 3.5 second time to kill. So if we inflict our enemy with weakness 2, they will die in 2.5 seconds, and if we use strength 1, they will also die in 2.5 seconds. Since strength 1 has a 30% increase and weakness 2 also has a 30% increase, but by using strength 2, we can get an extra 10% shaved off, making the time to kill 2.1 seconds. But here's the problem. With weakness 2 and strength 2 together, you'd expect the time to kill to be around 170% more damage taken for the enemy. But here's the problem. With weakness 2 and strength 2, we can add it together to get 170% more damage taken for the enemy. That's the only logical solution. For some reason, some odd reason, Arthur decided, like the sword damage crits being weird, the game breaks in this way too. So weakness 2 and strength 1 have a 180% damage rate. Yeah, I said strength 1. Weakness 2 and strength 2 should be at 170%. So how does strength 1 have a higher rate than that? Now, that's odd, because if we look at weakness 2 and strength 2, that doubles your damage. A 200% increase. We're basically adding 20% and 30% out of nowhere. Like, what are we doing, Arthur? Fix your game. Now, before you go around saying, and deal 40 damage in one hit with your damage 3 crit 2 Night Sword, I'd have to stop you. I mean, like, sure, it does 20 damage, but you thinking that it can double that easily, you'd be dead wrong. Because Blox once again has this really, really odd damage stacking system. Arthur, this is your cue to fix something. When you have strength 2 and your enemy has weakness 2, for some reason, Blox doesn't apply damage properly in these scenarios. So, while a hit with a normal sword against unenchanted armor will deal you 20 damage, when you have strength 2 and they have weakness 2, but for say you have damage 1 on your sword, that should increase it by 20%, except it doesn't. The difference between damage 1 and no damage at all is the exact same in this scenario. There's no increase. So you may be thinking, oh, well, we can just use higher levels of damage, then we're gonna actually have a difference. But no, damage 2 and damage 3 only add 1 extra point in these scenarios. Yeah, that's right. 20 damage without the enchant, and 21 damage with the enchant. Render and damage swords with strength and weakness completely useless. On the other hand, this is an excuse for me to tell you to use speed swords. They are not as nerfed as damage swords, and they're better. Just use them. Do it. Now, to take from this, when you have strength and your enemy has weakness, damage swords make pretty much no difference at all. So That's another reason why speed is the obvious choice. To finalize, I have linked in the description of the video of all the information I have gathered for you guys to look at for yourselves if it's more clear. And here's one last cool fact. Did you know only 6% of you are subscribed? And it takes me over 10 hours to create these videos, so maybe we can change that. I don't know, that's your decision. Thank you for watching.